Hi guys, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I have another challenge video to share with you today. For this card, I actually had my husband go into my craft room and pick out random items, and then I have to use them all and turn them into a card. So as you can see, he picked a bunch of different Distress Oxides. He picked this awesome Grass Edger 1 stencil from A Colorful Life Designs. And he picked 2 different stamp sets. One from My Favorite Things and one from Flora and Fauna. And he also picked some random little yellow sequins from my bling stash. So I have to use all of these items and put them together in a card. No other further instruction. I can use my tools and some, basic supplies like glue, black ink, things like that. But I have to turn it into a card, and that's what I'm going to do today. So I opted to use Bristol Smooth just because I knew I was going to be doing some watercoloring with those Distress Oxides, and I wanted it to obviously blend well and also hold up to some of the water. So I chose this little log from the My Favorite Things stamp set, and I used the rusty Hinge Distress Oxide to stamp with it. Now, if you've worked with Distress Oxides, you know how versatile they are. You can stamp with them, you can watercolor with them, you can stamp sentiments with nice even coverage, and you can also ink blend with them. So I didn't have a proper brown color that I was given for the challenge, so I'm just kind of layering on some of the Lucky Clover ink on top of it just to darken it to a little bit of a darker brown. And then here I have the top part of the Grass Edger stencil. Now, these are part of the August release at A Colorful Life Designs, and they are brilliant. There's all sorts of landscaping stencils, mountains, desert theme, trees, grass, but they have the positive and negative space, which you'll see that I use here to kind of create the layered look. But they're just brilliant and so versatile. So I'll link a video in the top right corner if you want to check out and learn more about these fabulous stencils. I definitely recommend it. But again, I'm using the green and the brown here. I didn't want it to be too flat and without dimension. So I'm kind of using the rusty Hinge, and I flipped over the stencil at one point just to kind of give it a little bit of a different look. And I'm just kind of building up that color, giving the image some grounding. And at this point, I know that I want to use that little snail. He's going to be my main focal point. So just kind of looking at my colors, trying to figure out what I'm going to use where, how I'm going to incorporate all the colors. And the biggest challenge to me, which my husband probably didn't even think about this, but this is definitely one of the biggest challenges, was the fact that one of these stamp sets has no outlines and the other one is solid stamps. So this is not my wheelhouse at all. I don't normally mix stamp sets with different line weights or with outlines and with outlines and without outlines. So this was a challenge for me. I had to really kind of think how I could create a cohesive scene with some of the images having an outline and some not. So I'm kind of looking at my options here and thinking from a design perspective. I know I want to use a couple of the flowers and the snail, so then I have a few things to kind of, have enough black where those tie together. And then I just want to make sure I have enough elements with the solid stamping or just the solid color. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, just using a dark black pigment ink, partially because it stamps so well and I know I need, nice stamping and good for that detailed sentiment stamping that I'm going to use, but also I need something that's waterproof. So this pigment ink obviously wouldn't work if I was using an alcohol marker, but it works great with the Distress Oxides in the way that I'm going to use them in a bit with watercoloring. So that all ties the image together, kind of put the little sentiment right underneath the log. It was the perfect length. And the sentiment and the log were from different stamp sets, so that was even more impressive that worked out so well. So it says it's a jungle in here. I have these big florals just, bellowing over this little snail on a log. And then here you'll see my camera or my phone actually died for this point when I first smushed down the ink, but I basically just took the ink pad and smushed some of the pigment right down onto the glass mat, and then I'm using a water brush pen from Arteza just to kind of fill in some of the color. So I'm using the black and white images, I'm using some more of the colors that were part of the challenge, and just kind of filling in the flowers. I'm not really paying attention to light source or shadowing. They're kind of graphic stamps, so I'm kind of wanting it to look a little messy watercolor. You can see I'm going outside the lines. It's not really intentional, but it works with the look, so I'm not worrying about it. Using the warmer colors for the flowers, using the green to fill in the leaves. I use some of the orange and the rusty hinge kind of to fill in the little fleshy part of the snail and some of the blue on his shell. And then just kind of going back in and layering up, you know, adding some darker color in spots and making the snail's body a little bit darker. Like I said, not really putting much thought into it, just kind of laying down the color. I like that it looks messy. And I really saturated the blue down on the bottom of my work surface just to kind of do like a little wash of color to add some blue to look like a sky. Darkening up the snail a little bit, and that's pretty much going to finish my coloring. And then super easy to clean up my craft space. Just use my stamp chamois, wipe off that ink, and then use a heat tool to dry it up. Now these sequins, these are the next challenge. This was the most intimidating thing, honestly, when he told me what I had to use, because for one, there's not a yellow ink in what he gave me. The closest thing to it is that rusty hinge color. And then second of all, these particular little sequins are all the same size. Normally when I use sequins as an embellishment, I'll have, you know, a bigger one and a middle-sized one and a smaller one, or at least a couple different sizes. So the fact that these were all the same size made it extra challenging for me. So I laid them all down. I like the look of them as flowers on that little floral to the left, but I felt like it was taking away too much from the snail and the sentiment, which are what I really wanted the focal point to be. So I decided to take them off the left image and then just leave the three to use more subtly on the flowers and then on the bottom. And then I get some adhesive here. I'm using this adhesive tape just to kind of really hold it down on the edges, because with using the heat gun, it did kind of warp the paper quite a bit. So I want to make sure that it adheres well to my A2 size card base. I'm going to attach it to a 110-pound cardstock. And I'm using the little trick that I learned from, I think it was Teresa at Lost in Paper. She's awesome, but you pull it off just halfway, and then that way, if you kind of mess it up, lining it up on the card base, it's not completely adhered down. So, little pro tip I learned from her on that. And then once you have it lined up, you just pull the rest of the backer off, just kind of smoothing it down to make sure it's attached, using some liquid glue to put down these three little yellow sequins. And, you know, making a right mess of it, like usual, putting them down upside down. We'll get it sorted. Anyway, I get those attached, and then I decide it needs a little something else. So I get my corner chomper out and round off the four edges. I feel like it gives it a little bit more of a whimsical look. And that's going to finish my card. So stick around in a minute here. I'm going to have my hubs on for the big reveal. Okay, Hubs, you challenged me with a bunch of rando craft items.
Indeed.
And
How'd you do?
This is what I made.
Oh man. Nice. Not what I expected.
What did you
I love
expect?
it. I thought you were going to do something with the butterfly. But this is cool. Nice colors.
You tripped me up with those little rando yellow sequins.
Yeah. What is this slug? The snail? Is that a stamp?
That's from this one right here. Here.
Oh yeah.
This one.
Didn't even see that guy. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that finishes my card and the challenge today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you ever find yourself in a slump or too overwhelmed by too many craft supplies, like me, guilty, then maybe have a family member pull out some rando items and test your creative skills and see what you come up with. Let me know in the comments if you'll give it a try. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I'll check you next time. Bye.